Hello, welcome back to my channel Christian Faith and Fiction. My name's Lou and today I want to share with you my recent reads, which includes a number of Christian fiction book reviews. So I've been reading a number of books recently, a selection of different ones. I keep a kind of vlog, if you like, as I'm going through. I review them as I'm going through. So the Christian fiction books are given an actual full review and the others more of just a rating. So let's see how I got on. I finished reading The Austen Escape by Katherine Reay. This is a contemporary romance, a contemporary book. It has romance, it also has friendship as well. So it's following Mary, who is an engineer I think in Texas. She's working in a firm and things are not quite going as she would like in that firm. She also likes a guy there who is one of the consultants there. And then one of her oldest friends asks her to go on a Jane Austen retreat to a country house near Bath in England. And she's pretty reluctant to go, but her dad persuades her to go, so they go over there and it's like a costumed retreat, so everyone has to dress up and pretend to be part of a Jane Austen time, but her friend starts to think that she actually is part of that time and actually living there. She has a sort of mental health episode thinking that she actually lives there, and so Mary's got to sort out all of the mess that causes. As I said, this book is a contemporary romance, so there is a romance involved in it. There's also quite a lot to do with the friendship between Mary and her friend and how it's the mess that it is and how to sort it out. So it's both those things together. It's listed on Amazon as Christian fiction, but I didn't find any real content, Christian faith content. There really wasn't anything to indicate that these were Christian characters, but it is clean and it's kind of moral story, so there's that. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed all the Jane Austen references. I enjoyed the characters and the sort of the complex nature of their friendship, and it's written in a modern romance style, but it does have some more emotional depth to it as well. It was a lot of fun to read. It's a shame that it's not actually Christian fiction, because I think it could have been, it could have added in quite a bit of faith content in there, but it's obviously being produced as a clean fiction, and I enjoyed it. Most of the conflicts I felt like emotionally invested in, but then there are one or two that I just felt like they were making a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing. And yeah, so that's why I'm going to rate it a story rating of 8.5 out of 10 and a faith rating of 0 out of 3, so it's clean but no faith content. I finished reading A Castaway in Cornwall by Julie Klassen. I absolutely loved this book. I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed the setting, the characters, the historical time period and the plot that was going on. It is set in Cornwall, obviously, and it's following Laura, who is an orphan who's living with her uncle, and she always feels like an outsider because she's not originally from there. And she likes to go walking on the beach and find like flotsam and jetsam that's come off shipwrecks and try and get it back to its original owners, or if she can't do that, then maybe do it up and sell it on. And one day she finds a man on the beach who has survived a wreck, and she is the one who helps him to survive it. And they're sort of they're thrown together because of that. And the first half of the book has a sort of gentle plot, but you really get to know the characters really well. There's a lot of sort of who are they, how they got to where they are now, and who's like telling the truth and what secrets are they holding. And then the second half of the book has much like faster paced plot going through it. There's a bit of mystery, there's romance, there's some action later on in the book, and I really enjoyed it. I found it that kind of slower pace at the beginning was really great for getting to know the characters and the setting really well, and there's a richness to the characters that made them feel very real, and I attached to them quite a lot because of that. There is faith content in there, and it's evident that the characters are Christian, so that was really great. And one of the things I enjoyed the most was the setting, because it's set in North Cornwall, where I've been on holiday multiple times ever since I was a teenager, if not a child. We used to stay for youth weekends away on the cliffs above Polesworth Beach, and I've been to Padstow multiple times. There's just so many tourists there. And I've also stayed in St Minver a couple of times, so I've seen the church there, which I think gets mentioned. And so every time something sort of came along where there's a place that I've already been to, I was just like squealing inside. It was so exciting to read it, and maybe because of that I enjoyed it more than some people might do, just because I could picture it really well in my head, and I loved that. Her next book coming out is actually set even closer to where I live. It's like 30 minutes away from where I live. So be prepared. If she ever mentions where I live in that book, you will hear me squealing from the other side of the Atlantic. I'm very excited about that one. But this one was fantastic. I really loved it. And I've given it 10 out of 10 for story content and 3 out of 3 for faith content. I finished listening to The River of Adventure by Enid Blyton. This is the last one in that series, and I give it 8 out of 10, I think, for story content. I actually give it 1 out of 10, 1 out of 3, sorry, for faith content. They actually did mention some odd bits from the Bible. Nothing to do with the Bible, not really a Christian book, but it does actually mention some stories from the Bible in there. It is one of the most adventurous locations that she goes to. I find it a bit dated in terms of the way that they're portraying foreign cultures and other people, and the way they speak seems a little bit out of fashion right now. Probably not very politically correct anymore, but it is quite an old book. And then I have finished Veil of Winter by Melanie Dickinson. This is book 3 in the Derricott Tales. And I had the same reaction to this as I did to the first one. There are bits of the book that I absolutely loved. I thought it was really good, particularly the action parts of this book. And then there are bits of the book which I found really cheesy and a bit cringy, more to do with the romance side and a little bit repetitive. So I'm still on the fence about this particular series compared to the Hagenheim series. I loved the cover. I liked the concept of it. I liked the characters and in general, and I liked when they were like actually doing things and there's stuff going on. I enjoyed that, but yeah, just there's too much in it that made me like just cringe. Think this doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like a proper people. It feels a bit stale, maybe. I don't know, but yeah, I tried to imagine what it's like to read as a teenager, but I still think some of it would be a bit cringy. Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard. I'm still continuing with the series because I still love medieval stories, and I love fairy tales and fairy tale retellings, and the Christian content is good in these books, in this one particularly. So I give it a 3 out of 3 for Christian content. I think I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10 for story content, so 3 stars. And I never described the book, so it's following Princess Elise, who is being forced to marry someone for political alliance, and her people are going to be sent down mines, and she doesn't want to do that, and so she tries to fake her own death and escape. And there is one of the brothers from the Derricott series. His name is Gerard, and he comes over to help her after seeing a vision from God, I think. And so they are like trying to escape and sort things out, and on the journey getting to know each other. That's kind of how this story goes. I think it's meant to be like Sleeping Beauty, but twisted around slightly. Yeah, something like that. So I finished reading Chitty Chitty Bang Bang by Ian Fleming. This is the original book that the film was based on. The car is the same, 3 of the characters are the same, but the story is completely different and much more in the vein of Ian Fleming's like James Bond, but for very young kids. And I thought it was really good fun. I gave it a 10 out of 10 for the story and a 0 out of 3 for faith, so it was clean but not faith content. And then I actually finished reading Dombey and Son. I haven't talked about this one very much on my TBRs because it's been on there for about 7 years, maybe, years and years. It took me absolutely years and years to read the first 500 pages, and then the last 300 pages I've literally just listened to in the last week. It really picked up pace in the second half of the book, and it sort of got more of a storyline going to it. The plot is quite meandering, but I really loved some of the characters in it. They're really quirky. There was actually some faith in it as well, but it's classic. And yeah, the last but one Dickens novel that I need to read, I've just got one more left, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, which is the unfinished one that he's written. But yeah, I was really good to listen to it again. It makes me want to reread or re-listen to all of Dickens' novels again, but then if I do that, I'll be here forever, because like the audiobook for that one was like 41 hours long if you listen to it on normal speed. And they're all a bit like that. Some of them are shorter. But yeah, I was really glad to finish it. I give it a 7 out of 10 for story content and a 1 out of 3 for faith content. So I've finished reading Fawkes by Nadine Brandis. This is a historical fiction / fantasy. It's like a kind of allegory of what was happening in the time of Guy Fawkes. So it's following the historical story of Guy Fawkes and the plot to blow up Parliament, which is a true story. And at the time there was a conflict between Catholics and Protestants. So that is reflected very much in this book. Things that are added into it from the true story are the main characters, Thomas and Emma, and also the magic system. So it is quite close to the original story apart from those things, which I enjoyed. I thought she did quite a good job of showing the kind of conflict and the nuances, the more difficult aspects of that situation that was going on. She uses, for Catholics, she has turned into what's called keepers in this book, and the Protestants are turned into igniters, and they have different views on how white light should be used. So I'm not explaining this very well, but there's like the people in this book, everybody, or at least people with noble families, are given a mask by their father or their mother, and it bonds with their face and it turns a certain colour depending on what kind of magical ability they are able to have. So depending on what colour it turns is your strongest magical ability. Keepers believe you only have one ability, and igniters believe you can use all of the different colours. So this story is following Guy Fawkes' son Thomas, who is a imaginary character, not a real character, and he has not been given his mask, and so he goes in search of his father, Guy Fawkes, who he really doesn't know very well. Guy Fawkes is a famous soldier, and Thomas has to travel to London. At the same time, there's also like a plague going on, a bit like the bubonic plague in the real world. There's like a stone plague which turns people to stone, and Thomas has this plague and he has to try and keep it a secret, and he wants his mask to try and sort of cover it up and also find healing. And there's different views on who sort of caused the plague to come and what would get rid of it. And that kind of leads to this whole plot to blow up Parliament and kill the King James. As I said, I think I enjoyed the historical sort of resonance with it. I did think she did a good job of showing both sides of the story in that I liked the main characters. I liked the relationship between Thomas and Emma, and also Thomas and his father. I liked the magical elements of it with the masks. That was really interesting, and the plague. I did find it heavy at times, emotionally heavy. There was a lot of anger and hatred and resentment and revenge that's kind of going on. And also another thing I wasn't so keen on was the character of White Light, which I think is supposed to represent God. And his voice is quite snarky and sarcastic, which to me didn't sort of fit with the character of God. So I was kind of in two minds about that one. But I felt like there was a good amount of faith content in there, just because it's like an allegory of what was happening between Protestants and Catholics at the time. And that really drives the plot as well. So it's a really strong part of the book. So I gave this story content, I gave it 8 out of 10, and faith content 3 out of 3. I finished reading a novella collection called Keeping Christmas, which is a collection of 6 novellas, Christmas themed, and they are all Christian fiction, various genres. I really enjoyed that there were like 6 different, there were multiple different genres in the collection. I enjoyed picking up some new to me authors. I'll go through the individual stories in a minute to tell you what they're about. But overall, I gave it an average rating of 7.5 out of 10 for story and 3 out of 3 for faith content. So that was by far the best thing about it for me, was the amount of Christian content in that collection. I think it totaled like just over 600 pages in total, and each one was around about 100 pages each. It was really fun to read like different Christmassy sort of themed stories, and they were all different locations, different sort of genres. So I'll go through them. The first one was called Lights of Castleborn by Chautona, Havig and Kathe Swanson, and this was a contemporary Christian romance that was following a landscape designer and a plumber, I think, or a plumbing engineer, something of that sort. And they were working together on a big manor house type thing. So yeah, that was a fun one. And then the second one was The Girl from Delana by Olivia Talbott, and this is a historical fiction romance that was set in Stockholm, and following like a milkmaid who is very beautiful and then gets all these invites to these big high society parties, and she has to sort of make decisions about who she is and what she's prepared to do for money or for fame. And the third one is called The Cross at Morioka Castle by Kathleen J. Robison. And this is another Christian contemporary romance set in Japan. And it was really interesting to read about like Japanese Christians and what it's like to be a Christian in Japan. And sort of the main character has quite a strong family and a family business that she's part of, and her father's just died, and so she's gone back to Japan from America to sort that out. And I enjoyed that one. The fourth one is called The Ghost of Christmas by Denise L. Barela. And this is like a contemporary romance, but set in a house party in a big house, and it's like also a ghost story as well. The fifth one is called Crystal Clear by Marguerite Martin Gray, and this is following someone who is friends with one of the princesses in Queen Victoria's court, historical fiction, and her sister elopes with, I can't remember who it was with, like a merchant or somebody of a lower rank anyway, and so it disgraces her, and she gets sent to a kind of castle in France, where she is trying to hide her identity a bit and sort of rehabilitate herself. And that's a historical romance, and I enjoyed that one. And The last one is called The Weary World Rejoices by Naomi Craig, and this is a biblical fiction, and it's following a scribe who is part of the palace, Herod's palace, when the Magi come to visit and are looking for the Messiah, and it sparks a lot of questions off in his mind, and he has to go and sort of interviews different characters who are part of what we think of as a traditional nativity story. So that was also a really interesting story as well. When I bought it, it was a reduced price on a pre-order, so it's now full price, I think, but it is also in Kindle Unlimited, so if you happen to have that, then it's worth having a look at this collection and seeing what you think of it. So those are the books that I've read recently. If you've read any of them yourself, let me know what you thought of them down in the comments, and also let me know of any book you've read recently that you can recommend. Okay guys, I hope you're having a really great reading week, and until next time, God bless. Bye.